Welcome to the Wild Stars, a region of the Milky Way Galaxy where, 75,000 years ago, mankind made their first migration into space, colonizing planets circling the brightest stars in the night sky. These are the Wild Stars.
All right, Shane Plays here on location at Collector's Edition Comic Books in North Little Rock, Arkansas with friend of the show, sponsor, all that good stuff, Michael Tierney, who his comic book stores, the comic book store in Little Rock and Collector's Edition here in North Little Rock, are sponsors of the Shane Plays Geek Talk radio show. I've also known Michael for many, many years, and one of the things that I always try to help him do is get the word out on Wild Stars. So you see that behind Michael there, that we've got a big new promotion here, big new release in conjunction with CIRSOVA magazine. And just want to talk about that a little bit. So Michael, what's new in the world of Wild Stars?
This is the 35th anniversary of the Wild Stars. Now, I started writing them back in 1977, and in 1984 I started publishing them as comic books, and then in 2001, 2002, I finished a big long story of comics, of the adaptations that I was doing. In 2014, I came up with a new novel that wrapped around some other comics, the Force Majeure comics. Last year, I did a Wild Stars 3, which was published by CIRSOVA.
Right there, right.
Right, and that's the one.
And then you got the Book of Circles recalibrated.
Right.
Yep.
And then last year, I did a new novel, Time War Armageddon, which was published by CIRSOVA. They also did a regular edition, a variant wraparound by Mark Wheatley.
Oh, nice.
And then we also did a limited edition hardcover, again with a Mark Wheatley Virgin wraparound. I really like Virgin art covers. I mean, you get
it
to
looks
see just
really
a
fantastic.
Yes. And so we took that concept with my new Wild Stars #4 that just is being released to mass markets tomorrow.
Tomorrow, so October 5th,
right.
2019. People can Amazon,
Barnes and Noble, Target, just
right.
anywhere good books are sold.
Right now, will it be? It's online, or will it be in stores, or
both?
Both.
And, mainly online, though. And
right.
see, that's one thing that is nice that you can do
right.
with online sales is you can do Virgin covers.
Nice.
And so Mark Wheatley turned in such a nice set of covers because CIRSOVA liked the story of 4 so much. He said not only is it a great story, it made all the earlier stories even greater. And so he did a deluxe reprinting edition of all 4 books. Here is the original Book of Circles you saw just a moment ago in a gigantic paperback. You can see how much that is enlarged from its original presentation.
Wow, nice. So, tell us a little bit about what the Wild Stars. The more I learn about the Wild Stars, and the more I read it, and the more you tell me about it, it just gets crazier and crazier. So you've got
it's a big story.
Psychic dinosaurs called griefs.
Dire griefs. There's
dire
3 kinds
griefs,
of griefs,
yeah.
and there's only one kind, the dire griefs, that are psychic.
Right, and then you've
and
got
also able to camouflage and things like that.
And the story goes from like
way back
prehistory
past,
to modern times to way in the future.
Alternate reality. Yeah.
Alternate. It's all over the place.
See, back in the 70s, I wrote like a series of 7 novels. And so in 1984, I started adapting one of those novels. And so I've always continued to expand it and grow. So I've got this huge template of the past, present, and future history of the Wild Stars. And the comics and the new novels are just kind of bringing that all into a focus. Now, the concept behind the Wild Stars, and this is what we start out with, is that 75,000 years ago, mankind made their first migration into the space, colonizing planets circling the brightest stars in the night sky. Those are the Wild Stars. Well, now, 75,000 years later, they've gotten to war with genocidal enemy up in space. That war comes back to Earth. That's where you get into the alternate timelines where they try to recreate our timeline. And that's all in the Book of Circles. That's the first big story. It's got a lot going on in it.
Right.
Force Majeure kind of takes you for the next step where the main characters are there from the past and the present into the future. I mean, they actually go back 500 million years to the Precambrian age, but it starts out in the present time and then it says the future. And then Wild Stars 3 picks up where that one left off. It's set in the future. Now, Wild Stars 4, the new one that just came out, as I said, I explained about how the concept is that 75,000 years ago there was a migration. What I've never explained until now is why that migration happened. And this gives you not only the explanation, but it tells you about the last days of the migration.
Nice.
So that's almost like a prequel, sequel to everything.
Nice. So another thing I wanted to point out, maybe you can help me out here. All of these covers for Wild Stars 1 through 4, you get the Virgin cover, and on the back you have what some people might call a more standard cover.
Yeah.
And they form one big
Wild Star.
Very nice. That's very nice. And then one other thing I want to make sure to point out that's part of the exciting new release and news is this Omnibus.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us about the Omnibus. This is the first time, I believe, that it's ever been collected like this.
This is all for those. In this, you get everything. And so you get the deluxe packaging and all the stories.
So it's a mix of it's prose, it's comic book, it's illustrations. Right. It's a mix of it's a huge.
Everything in there is in here, and this is a monster. Now another thing you get in Wild Stars 4, which of course you also will get in the Omnibus, which has a beautiful wraparound cover by Anton Oxnuck,
right?
Who also did the cover for another story I had published earlier in the year, where I finished off an Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan story called Young Tarzan.
Right.
He was also the artist for that. That came out earlier this year.
Young Tarzan and the Mysterious She, which was the first canon new Tarzan fiction in
70 years.
Yeah, blessed by the Edgar Rice Burroughs. I always want to say foundation, but it's incorporated.
He incorporated himself.
Right, yes.
And so that is official canon. That is officially the first new Tarzan story in 70 years. And people cannot tell which part is mine, which part is his. So I always take that as a compliment.
Right, and then you've got, from way back, I remember buying from the 80s. In the 80s, Michael, I remember these Wild Stars portfolio you did. I mean, that shows you how long this has been. You've been working on the Wild Stars legitimately.
Right, yeah, you'll find these on Amazon and eBay for like $125 a pop. You can get them a lot cheaper from me.
Yeah, get them a lot cheaper at Collector's Edition or the comic book store. Here's some original Wild Stars art that you've got.
Oh, yeah.
Up here on the...
That's by Dave Simons, who did about 3/5 of the art in the Book of Circles, the Volume 1. That's a 300-page graphic novel. And here's another one he did. That's the original art before being rendered and added to the comic book page.
Nice. And then you've got your plaque here.
That explains you where
the Wild Stars
appeared in the story context.
Nice. Okay, so folks, it's the Wild Stars, a multi... era epic. It's sci-fi, it's comic books, it's fantasy, it's pulp, it's time travel, it's parallel dimensions, it's psychic dinosaurs, it's enemies in space, it's a Native American president of the United States, it's you name it.
Plus,
it's
one more thing.
What else you got in there?
All that on there, that may sound a little overwhelming to readers. So as a bonus, in Wild Stars 4, in the back, you get a glossary of all the names, people, places,
and
characters,
how to tie it all together.
So if you ever get confused, like who's this, what's going on,
right?
Stop reading when you get to the point where you don't recognize things, so you'll be getting spoilers.
Okay, great. Well, fantastic. And you can buy starting tomorrow, October 5th, 2019. Like you said, Barnes & Noble, Amazon,
that's the worldwide
etc.
Release, right.
Worldwide release. So it's the Omnibus and these 4 books. What is it that you can get?
The Omnibus, it's a little harder to get. You have to get this one at Lulu. They've got an exclusive on it. I don't know of any sellers putting it on Amazon, at least not yet.
Okay, but all of these 1 through 4.
On Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target. I've seen all 3 of them listed already, and who knows where else it'll be made available.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Michael, thank you very much.
Thanks for talking about it.
And look forward to watching the Wild Stars continue to be successful.
Super. I appreciate your help.
All right.